Kenya National Examinations Council makes every effort to lay the foundation for smooth examinations. One critical section of the stakeholders is threatening to pour cold waters on their efforts. Now, tutors under the Kenya National Union of Teachers have given the employer, the Teachers Service Commission, until mid next week to address their demands, lest they take unspecified action. NAT, through their Secretary General Wilson Sosion, are particularly demanding for the stoppage of the delocalization program, which began earlier this year. Now, teachers say the delocalization, among several other grievances, must be addressed before the 17th of October. At least 80 primary school heads who were NAT officials have been moved in keeping with the delocalization policies. Now, teachers wonder now why the TSC has remained adamant, even after President Uhuru Kenyatta directed that the policy be suspended as it was dividing families. Let's bring in our lead reporter tonight, Sophia Nuna, joining us with more insights on the same. Sophia, good evening. 2 weeks to go to national examinations. NAT, however, says they might not take place. What's the latest?
Indeed, good evening, Michelle. It's just around that time of the year that candidates across the country are preparing for the national final examinations. And there's that warning from the Kenya National Union of Teachers that if they do not settle their grievances with the employer, the Teachers Service Commission, they will be downing their tools come end of this month. In fact, remember earlier the announcement was that they would be going on strike from 1st of September. However, there were calls for dialogue and a sit down to be able to iron out these issues. So they have said if this time around those negotiations do not bear fruit 5th of October, then they will be calling for that nationwide strike. However, even as they continue with their talks, Michelle, there's concern already about the manner in which they have been engaging. We've seen both parties, NAT and TSC, call each other out on positions they have come out to state that were allegedly agreed in closed-door meetings. For instance, the Teacher Service Commission put out a statement saying that their talks before that with the Kenya National Union of Teachers had not involved anything to do with the promotion of 30,000 teachers. So they were just setting the record straight because NAT had come out to say that, in fact, that had featured in their discussions. But after that statement from TSC, then the NAT's Secretary General Wilson Sosion calling TSC out on that statement, arguing, in fact, the invitation to the meeting read promotion of teachers, so that how would TSC be turning around to say it did not feature in the meeting, and yet the invitation headline was that we're coming to discuss one of the issues being promotion. So that's one of the sticky areas that they're negotiating and talking about. As you mentioned, also delocalization of teachers. From the very beginning, NAT has been strongly opposed to this. So we'll wait to see how that plays out. But in as far as the examinations are concerned, the national examination today, the Cabinet Secretary Education, Dr. Mena Mohammed, telling the Education Committee in the National Assembly that all systems are a go, they're ready, they've put everything in place and in order. That in fact they have learned lessons from previous years of challenges they faced around transportation when the weather is really bad, that causes delay in transferring and taking this examination material to various schools. And when she was put to task on the fake papers in some schools and areas, she said the papers that may be there, none of them is legitimate examination papers, and also saying that they're cautioning parents not to encourage or fund those kind of engagements, if you like. But let me speak to a man who has also come out to urge the Kenya National Union of Teachers to take the talks on the negotiating table with TSC seriously, as opposed to calling for a strike, because then that, of course, would have significant impact on the candidates. Mboko Milemba is the chairman of the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET. Thank you, sir, for making time for us. So these talks are ongoing between TSC and NAT, but already we are seeing them publicly coming out to say, oh, we did not talk about this, this and this did not take place, or this position was not taken. So are you confident they will reach a deal?
Oh, thank you very much. First, let me wish everybody a happy Moi Day tomorrow. It reminds us of Mzee Moi, Kenya. Now, that's very normal with talks. When talks are ongoing, there tends to be disagreements here and there. But we should look at the holistic picture, the holistic good in the talks. So I just want to wish that they proceed to keep their eyes on the ball, on the holistic good, which is that issues that concern labor are negotiable issues, and therefore the best way to handle them is actually by sitting on table and negotiating to get a proper solution. We actually had a different opinion. We did not oppose the NAT strike per se, because it's the right of KNUT, and KNUT is a registered, strong mother, teachers. Their opinion, we respect them. But we thought that a voice going the negotiation way would really achieve us a lot. And I want to congratulate them because they moved both parties to Naivasha to look at the issues of concern. But again, I wish they could just come back on table and negotiate so that they get solutions. Number one, there's the issue of delocalization. Delocalization, in fact, should be expunged from the table because delocalization is a wrong term. It is not a term that is used professionally in the teaching fraternity. We should be talking about either teacher transfer, we should be talking about teacher deployment or appointment as we signed it in the CBA, and not delocalization. Delocalization demeans the idea of transferring a teacher from one school to another. So it's a contagious issue. The president had made his pronunciation about it, and therefore I think the Teacher Service Commission should also, in the negotiations, consider the presidential directive so that it takes a center stand in ensuring that the teachers are not transferred. So I'll avoid using the word localization, transferred in a manner that will affect their family, will affect those old and almost retiring, will also affect those who are sick, and will break up families. That's something we really stand with.
So let me ask you this, because one of the concerns we're hearing from teachers is when this exercise, delocalization or transfers, if you like, is not based on merit. It is not about the performance of a head teacher here or there, that they need to move and perhaps they could do some of the programs they're doing in one school in the next. That it's purely around, if you come from this region, we will make sure you do not head a school in the same region. So there's no merit in that, is there?
Indeed, there's no merit in that term. And indeed, that's why they coined the word delocalization instead of appointment, deployment, and transfer. Because now it reduces teaching to a tribal or a sectional item, that because you are born here, so you must not teach here because you are born here. But again, this is something that can be challenged, and we told our Secretary General to further also move and get the legal advice about it, because it borders on the Bill of Rights, which talks about the idea of discrimination. You cannot be discriminated from working in a place because you are born and bred in that particular place. Right. So I think the president saw that, and that's why he moved to give a direction, which I think the Teacher Service Commission should strongly consider, because when the president pronounces himself about a certain one item, there's a serious reason why he did so.
All right. Let's talk about the promotion of teachers. Nat is saying that they want this to be based on academic qualifications, that there are several teachers who've gone and furthered their education. However, TSC maintains it should be on appraisals. But doesn't appraisal put into consideration academic qualifications that may have been gotten when one is already teaching?
Oh, two terms should come up here. One is teacher progression, which you haven't used, and then teacher promotion. Teacher progression was begun in 2006 when the CEO of the Teacher Service Commission was Longoboini. And it was based on the fact that if you get higher education, then you should be promoted. And that's what we call teacher progression. But the teacher promotion is based on the working terms and the scheme of service that you are using. And therefore, a teacher in the second school who joins at K, after 1 year is expected to go to M, L, M, and then L, yes, in that order. But then the truth is that many of the teachers have stagnated in the same job group, especially those in the secondary in job group K, L, and M. Some of them have been there for more than 10 to even 15 years, and it's not correct. And therefore, when NAT talks about promotion, we as COPETA are equally talking about promotion. It's a key issue, which when we met them during the earlier meeting where we met with the employer, we also put it on table that these teachers should be promoted. And the Teacher Service Commission, we told them that they must promote, especially the teachers who have stagnated in the same job group, especially K, L, and M. for more than 10 years and above.
Yes. There are those who say if, in fact, NAT goes ahead and calls a strike if these talks do not materialize with the TSC, that it would not have much impact on the examinations, that TSC could hire the special teachers. They do not need so many or big numbers, if you like, to administer and oversee the exercises and vigilators. And so do you agree with that kind of thinking?
I don't totally agree with that. I don't agree with that because majority of the teachers who invigilate exams are primary school teachers, and they have done it over the years, and they know how to do that work, and they are seasoned, they are experienced. So the best would be for us to negotiate so that we don't have a strike during the exam period. And like we have taken it as Kupet, we are moving to the negotiating table. We had the talks last month, and then we agreed that we go and review our position. So we shall also be meeting the Teacher Service Commission over the same. But if KNUT goes on strike and withdraws the primary school teachers from invigilation, that will be a key interference in the examinations itself. And therefore, for me, negotiations will be the way to go for us to have good examinations. And I also think the Kenya National Council should get a little bit more ready for those exams than they are currently.
You don't think they are? They've been holding press briefings and announcing about the various measures they've put in place to ensure that the examination, the papers and everything else around exam preparation is good to go.
They have done well, and I must say I'm happy because up to last Saturday when I was addressing the Kenya National Examination Council, I was telling them that they were not sure where some of the candidates were, especially the candidates in Kibra, the candidates in Narok. There are some schools in Narok where we only had 15 students out of a population of 700 because of the clashes there. But I'm happy I saw reports, though they did not come to us officially to explain that. I saw reports that they have started tapping where these students are so that we relocate them to a given non-examination centers. So that will be one area that is very, very crucial so that the examination will be done very well. And I thought up to yesterday or thereabout, they were not ready about that. Yeah. Another area where I also think they are not ready is the psych preparedness. How well balanced are they emotionally in terms of preparedness of exams? Because when the CEO and the chairman of the Kenya National Examination Council starts maligning or stereotyping certain areas that they are planning to steal exams, when his business is actually to block stealing, to make sure that the examinations don't leak, then you know that preparedness is wrong because it will destabilize the mind of the parents. So if you stereotype a particular area, number of schools, those parents are the same as the teachers and they're the same as the students, then you will destabilize the preparedness of the students. So let the Kenya National Examination Council do its work very well and wish them well. We want to support them fully and we shall give them all the support, but let them not create scares that will destabilize the emotions of the students. And also let them not move too fast so that we don't just have results for the sake of results. Because currently, Kupet is doing and has already done a research study on the impact of the mass failures of the last 2 years to Kenya and the education system moving forward.
Right. Briefly and finally, you're confident they will reach a deal, TSC and NAT, and yet, as I was explaining earlier, we have seen them come out with different positions after a meeting, in essence calling each other out, saying you're lying or whatever, you're being dishonest, that we discussed this and the other. So this a little bit of acrimony we see going to bear fruit?
Wanuna, we have had more serious acrimony in the teaching profession, and I have been in the center of those acrimonies. And I saw you also reporting on those acrimonies. I think what we are having on table is crucial, but I would call on the two parties to reach a consensus and dialogue so that we move forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Many thanks. Thank you so much for making time for us. That's Somboko Milemba. He's the chairperson of the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers. He is confident and optimistic that a deal will be reached to avert a strike by the Kenya National Union of Teachers, of course, that would have impact on the national examinations that begin in just a few weeks. Michelle.
What I'll report Sophia Onuni there with more information on this. And let's take a look at a few more details on the NAT TSC stalemate and what we know so far there. The policies touching on delocalization, mostly by the Teachers Service Commission. The delocalization policy has been the most contentious issue there. But let's take a look first of all at the history of teachers' strikes in the country. The first teachers' strike being held there in I beg your pardon, just a minute there. First teachers' strike being held in 1962, just before the country achieved independence. The second teachers' strike was held later that year in October 1962 and was further declared illegal by the country's first government, KANU. And then fast forward just a few years later to 1966 in November there, the third teachers' strike took place. And even though just for a brief period, this particular strike made history because it finally led to the formation of the Teachers Service Commission formed through a bill tabled by Parliament by the then Minister of Education, Jeremiah Nyaga. But the formation of the TSC still did not stop the fourth strike from happening in November 1969, a strike there occasioned by the need for an escrow between the Teachers Service Commission and NAT. So the formation then of the Teachers Service Remuneration Committee, but the ministry at that time was not willing to implement the said recommendations leading to that particular strike. It was a strike that then President Daniel Arap Moi blamed on the opposition for fueling the strike. But even after the elections, since that was an election year, another strike was witnessed in October of 1998 with the Kenya National Union of Teachers blaming the government for refusing to implement a pay rise. And this was because the government had promised to implement a pay rise there through the Presidential Committee. Now, fast forward that to January 2002, rather, when teachers went on another rampage demanding their pay rise, which they legally earned in 1997. All methods used at that time to send teachers back to class proved futile, even with the then Minister for Education, Henry Kosgei, threatening to sack all the teachers. Fast forward to January 2009, another strike, this one cited perhaps as the mother of all strike. Almost 8 million children were affected by this go-slow. Teachers at the time wanted a sum of 19 billion shillings to be paid, but with a lot of persuasion by the government, they went back to school with a promise of being paid 17 billion shillings in phases, the government then citing economic issues. Now, July 2013 saw yet another teachers' strike, with teachers demanding a 300% pay rise as well as a responsibility allowance. This strike went on for 24 days, and although ruled illegal by the industrial court, the teachers' union led by Wilson Sosion held their position and the teachers went on strike. Now, since then, there have been a lot of push and pull there and grievances between the Teachers Service Commission and the Kenya National Union of Teachers there, led by Wilson Sosion. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the main bone of contention here is the recent policies introduced by the Teachers Service Commission, and among them is the delocalization policy, which means the transfer of teachers and head teachers from their counties of birth, something that the Teachers Service Commission says is in a bid to achieve a national outlook in the management of schools. Let's bring in our guest in studio. Muge Macharia is the NAT Executive Secretary, Nairobi branch. You also have Nicholas Mayo, who is the chair of the Kenya Parents Association. Let me begin with you, Muge. Let's get the position of the Kenya National Union of Teachers there. The delocalization program seems to be the main bone of contention, but the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET, which brings together teachers from secondary schools and colleges, the bulk of whom these policies target, say they have no problem with the transfers. What seems to be the problem for NAT?
Good evening, viewers. The delocalization policy is one of the draconian policy which has been started by the TSC. And let me say, the reason why we are against this policy is the transfer of all the teachers who are of even 55 years. Like in Nairobi, they have transferred a teacher who is 59 years. Another issue is transfer of sick teachers. Some of the teachers even are suffering from terminal illness. Another issue is that when these teachers are delocalized, when they go to the other counties, they are posted to the remotest schools. Then you'll find that they leave their families, like in Nairobi. They are having school children they have school-going children. And when you look at all this, you find that it has really destabilized the families of these teachers.
But the Teachers Service Commission, I mean, teachers transfers have been a routine affair since 1967 when the Teachers Service Commission was formed. The commission has then dealt with thousands of individual cases where teachers who are married have applied to be posted to the same area. It hasn't been a problem previously. Why does it seem to be such a big problem now, so big as to threaten to paralyze national examinations?
The delocalization policy is being used as if it is punitive. Teachers are being taken from classes, they are promoted to headship, and they have not applied. They are not even prepared for taking up the positions. So you'll find that it's just a policy which is being used by the TSC to punish teachers. So we are seeing it as it is not a policy to help a teacher, because even when you are working, you must enjoy your work.
All right, we'll be coming back with more on that. Let's hear from the chair of the Kenya Parents Association, Nicholas Mayo. The Kenya National Union of Teachers now threatening unspecified action, a potential teachers strike just 2 weeks to the national examinations. Do you think the issues that teachers are raising warrant the stoppage of national examinations?
Thank you so much for having me and the studio. First and foremost, may I thank my fellow parents, because they've really sacrificed a lot to have their children to reach standard 8 and Form 4. Our take as Parents Association is that the teachers are the employees of TSC. They signed with them with their conditions that they will abide by it. What I would say is a job worth doing it is worth doing it well. So for Association to say that they will abandon our children at this time of need, as parents, we are saying a professional like a doctor cannot abandon a patient while the patient is on the table, is waiting to be operated. Our children now are like the patient who is almost waiting to be operated on. So we cannot say that teachers are not professionals.
All right.
They are professionals.
All right. Well, let's just hold it there. Let's take a short break on the big story. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. What seems to be the bone of contention between the Teachers Service Commission and the Kenya National Union of Teachers. Will this paralyze national examinations set to begin just 2 weeks from now? All that and much more after this short break.
This is KTN News.